Just to inform you that I'm recording. So I just started recording. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session. Today is Tuesday of the third session, session 3 we're in. And this session we're dealing with people skills. But before I start on people skills, I just wanted to chat on something concerning leadership. Very often, persons in their posts complain that team members are not attending work on time or absenting themselves, or they're not applying themselves sufficiently. As supervisors, prior to this training, you could have adopted the position that they are not pulling their weight, so to speak. They're not doing what they are intended to do. But after having gone through the training for the last 2 weeks, I think you should see it as a challenge to your leadership role. That when persons who are team members are not performing well, we should not look at it and say, well, they are not performing well, they are not doing well, they are not doing this, they are not doing that. You must look back to yourselves and says, you know, probably I am not leading effectively enough. So that when a team performs well, it is to the credit of the supervisor. And when a team is not performing well, it is a challenge to the supervisor. So when you see members not performing well, instead of criticizing them, you must look at yourself now and say to yourself, you know, what can I do, or what am I not doing in my leadership role that is not motivating them some more to be better? So seeing team members underperforming prior to this training, you could look at them and say, these team members are underperforming. After having gone through two weeks with us, you should change and say now, what am I not doing? How can I be a better leader so I can get this person's performance to improve? So what I'm saying is that the responsibility now changes. The responsibility changes from criticizing to self-introspection. Prior to the training, you would look at them and say they are not performing well. After the 2 weeks, you now ask yourself, why are they not performing well? What is it that I am not doing? What is it, where am I weak? And what can I do to make them perform better? So now you see that your leadership role is a significant challenge, is a challenge to you, that you are now responsible for getting them to work better. So I just wanted to mention that as a point coming out of the first 2 weeks. Also to point out to you that our Friday session, which we did when I was there, we introduced some topics, and I did a small video here, and I placed it on session 3, so you can look at it. It's a clip, it's a video clip just going over all the topics that I introduced last week Friday, and there's a video here so that you can look on the video to recap what I did. Also, there is a video here that Sandy did yesterday, and she posted up on team building and dysfunctions of a team. So again, I would recommend that you make sure that you spend time to look at this video as well. Session 3 deals with people skills. And I want to draw your attention to a sentence that I have here, that 80% of supervisors who fail at their job do so for their inability to relate well with other people. So in the first 2 weeks, we spoke about your role as a leader and your role as a manager or an administrator. What we see here in session 3 is that even if you know what is the role of a leader or the role of an administrator or the role of managing resources, you will not do it properly unless you have very good people skills. So that people skills are crucial for both roles, but more so for their leadership role. If it is that you are weak in people skills, you can learn all the theory of leadership, all the theory of administration or managerial role, but you will not be able to perform it well because you lack people skills. So that people skills are required, are crucial for you to perform the two roles of leadership and managerial role. Many of us do not have good people skills. And therefore, when you see that your team is not performing well, one of the challenges you must make to yourself as an introspection, is it a weakness in my people skills that I am not performing my leadership role better? That's a big challenge and is a very humbling thing. It's easy to blame others. It's easy to blame, say that, they're not doing their work. They're not coming up to scratch. They don't know what to do. But as we saw last week, Friday, probably you have not spent enough time certifying them in their tasks. Probably you have not spent enough time motivating them. Probably you have not spent enough time helping them deal with complexity, helping them deal with the struggles that are going on in their lives, understanding a clear vision, and probably, and I'm not criticizing you, probably it is due to a lack of people skills. So this week, we address people skills. And on the literature, we see that people skills require mastering 5 sets of skills: listening skills, assertion skills, conflict resolution skills, collaborative problem solving skills or team building skills, and the 5th one, knowing which skill to use when. So there are 5 sets of skills that you have to learn to master to perform your people skills well and therefore be a very good leader and a good administrator. Remember also that we spoke last week that it is also important for you to be able not just to communicate down to your team members, but to communicate horizontally to your peers, other supervisors, and vertically to your managers, so that as you work to improve your people skills, you will find that you will perform both your leadership and your administrative roles better, and you will be a better supervisor. Today, we want to start off with the first set of skills, listening skills. And I was very surprised, but probably I should not have been, that very few people listen very well. Most people are weak in listening skills. In fact, we spend more time listening than speaking. As a human being, we could spend, if you ratio between listening and speaking, we are supposed to be spending 60% of our time listening and only 40% of our time speaking. Yet, very few people are trained in listening skills. And most of us, including myself, are weak listeners, that we do not listen properly. And most of us, if we do not listen properly, we really very seldom understand what another person is saying to us. And this is not only a problem in your role as supervisor, but also in your role as parent and role as spouse. If you're not listening to your spouse, well, then your relationship will break down. If you are not listening to your children, your parent-child relationship will break down. So listening skills are very important. And I would like to suggest that all of us, including myself, must practice trying to improve our listening skills. Now, there are certain barriers to effective listening. 3 main barriers to effective listening. 1, judging the other person. That instead of listening to what the person is saying, we judge, we know what the person coming with. And you say in your mind, I know where you're coming from. I know what you're coming with. And before you listen to the person, you have already made a judgment about what the person is going to say. This is especially so as parents and as spouses. From the time your wife, I see some women, they are nodding their head very vehemently. And from the time your spouse starts to speak, you say, I already know what you're coming with long time. And therefore, you're not listening. Or from the time your boss is saying something, you already say in your mind, I know what he coming with long time, or she coming with long time. You may not say it, but you're thinking it. Or your child is going to bring up an excuse. You say, I already know. Now, that judging of other persons prevent us from listening. And most of us do it. From the time the person start to say something, we judge, we know what they're coming with. And when we judge, we know what somebody's coming with, it prevents us from listening. So that's the first handicap of being a good listener. The second one is already having the answer for what they have to say before they even finish saying it. From the time they start, say, look, don't waste your time. Let me tell you what to do. And you already have the answer for what they're coming with. But again, if you're coming up with answers right away, you're not even listening. So that very often somebody may be telling you something and you already have the answer, and then they turn around and say, well, you know, actually, I wasn't going to say that. So sending solutions before the person is finished Describing what they have to say is another barrier to effective listening. And the third thing is avoiding the other person's concerns. That somebody is coming to you with a concern, and in your mind, you already say, that is not my business. I don't want to hear anything about that. That is, better find a pastor and go to him with that. So therefore, a team member is coming to you with an issue, and you don't even want to deal with that. You don't even want to take on that concern. So what we find is that most of us practice one of the three, or most of us practice all three. And the more we get to know someone, the more we practice these barriers. So therefore, in a husband and wife relationship, very little communication is going on. There's a lot of speaking, a lot of shouting, but very little listening. And it could happen with you and your team members, and it could happen with you and your peers, or you and your manager. And I'm not saying only you guilty. Sometimes your manager is guilty, that you coming to the manager, and it's good to put yourself in the shoe of the person not being listened to. You coming to your manager with something, but the manager already judge what you want to say, already give you the solution, and already is not even interested in what you're coming with. So, do any of these barriers sound familiar to any of you? Comments?
Yes, it does.
No comments?
Yeah.
What is that? It is, all right, okay. It seems as though from the smiles, I gather people are very comfortable with these practices in their own way. So therefore, these are barriers that we must eliminate in our listening. So for us to be effective listeners, there are three skill clusters that we have to attend to. The first is attending skills. What are attending skills? A posture of paying attention, appropriate body language, eye contact, non-distracting activity. So if it is someone is coming to speak to you, but you are on your phone, well then obviously you are not practicing attending skills. So attending skills means that you stop what you're doing, you pay attention to the person, and probably you lean forward looking at the person. So that therefore, attending skills mean I am interested in what you are about to say. And therefore, attending skills means that you probably lean forward. You stop doing what you were doing. You give full attention. You focus your eyes on the person. And that means that you are about to listen. So let us assume that in your house, you are reading the newspapers and your wife is cooking you a very delicious meal, and she turned around and she mentioned something that is happened to her, and you keep on reading the newspaper and you say, all right, okay. well, then obviously you're not practicing attending skills. Attending skills mean that you will fold the papers, put it down, and say, yes, darling, let me hear what happened to you at work today. I can see that Rambo is a very good practitioner of this. Some people are hiding their faces. I don't know why. But therefore, that is attending skills. If you go to visit someone or to talk to the HR manager, and the HR manager is typing on the computer, and she says, go on, I'm listening, but she continues to type her email, you know that she's not practicing attending skills. Attending skills means you stop what you're doing and you're paying attention. So the first set of skills that you have to master in order to become a better listening is attending skills. The second set of skills is following skills. When the person is, so you've stopped what you're doing and you're giving them your attention. The second set of skills is following, listening, and then being silent and probably asking questions. So probably we should improve their following skills, asking for clarification. So when somebody is speaking, you stop and now you're listening. So your wife who was cooking, she stopped, she was cooking, you stopped, you folded your newspaper, you put down your newspaper and you say, yes, darling, what is it that happened in the work today? And then she tell you a piece of gossip. And you're not really interested, but because you are becoming a better listener, you ask a few questions. And you say, isn't this the same lady you were telling me about last week? Well, now you're listening. So therefore, what happens is that you're paying attention. So therefore, you're following what is going on. And saying, is not good following skills. That is just preoccupied skills. You just doing something else and you're not really listening. And then the third set of skills are reflecting skills, meaning that you tell the person what you heard. So, are you saying that this lady cussed off the boss today? No, that means that you are playing back what the person told you and to make sure that that's what you heard. And she said, no, I never said that. Well, then you say, okay, well, I probably misunderstood. So the third set of skills is to play back what the person has told you to make sure that is exactly what is happening. So someone is coming to work and is missing work regularly. You ask them, why are you missing work regularly? When they start to speak, you avoid judging them. You avoid sending premature solutions. You lean forward, you stop what you're doing. You try to follow what they're saying. You ask them, and then you say, so I am hearing that you are saying that you oversleep every morning. And therefore they will have to say, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And they say, well, okay, why? So surprisingly, when we start to listen to people, they get shocked because they get shocked about the things that they are saying because no one ever listens to them before. So when you start to listen to people, people are surprised that you're listening to them, and they may end up realizing that they are also saying a lot of rubble and they're not saying something cohesive. So attending skills, following skills, and reflective skills are very important. So for you to become a better listener, you have to have these 6 skill sets. You have to stop judging, stop sending premature solutions, stop avoiding people's concerns, start attending to them when they're speaking, follow the course of the conversation by asking questions, and then when they are finished, play back to them what you heard them say and ask them if this is what they intended to say. Now, all of a sudden that you start to listen like this, you will be surprised that people will be shocked and say, you know, your wife will be surprised, your co-workers will be surprised, your team members will be surprised, because all of a sudden you start listening, and all the time before you were not listening. So when you are doing that type of listening, there are some little rules, but these are not important as those 6 skills, which says, you know, an empathetic listener is not only hearing what words the person is saying, but also what are the feelings behind the words. Remember when we did emotional intelligence, we saw that a person with high emotional intelligence is paying attention not just with what is being said, but the feelings that the person is exhibiting. So if somebody is coming to tell you something about the job, but you see them visibly irritable or visibly distraught, then you know that it is not just what they're saying, but what they're speaking about has triggered strong feelings in them. And therefore, when you listen to them, you are not just listening to the words that are being said, but that the feelings that those things evoke. A good listener can tell not just the words, but the body language and the feelings of the speaker. And therefore, you will find that as you improve your listening skills, you can become a much better leader, because you are paying attention to what your team members are saying to you. Most of the time, we are not paying attention to what people are telling us. And as a result, we make lots of errors in our judgments and in our solutions, because we are not truly listening. So I would like you to really set about improving your listening skills, as listening skills are the first set of skills to be able to improve your people skills. Now, as you go down on the literature, you will see that I have also included a questionnaire. And these questionnaires are never totally accurate, but they give us a good little gauge. So it can tell us scoring 4 as always, 3 as most of the time, 2 as some of the time, and 1 as rarely. So they ask you questions like, I remind myself that listening is an opportunity to learn something. Do you ever tell yourself that? Well, most of us don't. So therefore, our score may be rarely. I rarely do tell myself that. But if I start from now on saying, well, you know, when somebody is speaking, I must always remind myself that this is an opportunity to learn. Question number 2, I make myself listen even when the subject fails to interest me. Is that a practice that you normally do? When your wife is talking about something or your husband speaking about cricket, do you really make yourself listen even if you have no interest at all in that matter? Or is it that you make yourself listen to a team member telling you about the problems they are having when that is the least of your concern, and you would rather say, look, all right, you finish, and you want to move away. So again, you may not score highly. Question number 3, I make myself listen even if I fear that the speaker is a moron. Oh my gosh. Do you, if you believe somebody is a moron or somebody talking as a stupidness, do you still make yourself listen to them? Or do you ignore them because you say that man is a real fool and he don't even know what he's talking about? So that is making yourself listen. Yesterday, while we were here in the office, some time ago, a guy came, said he wanted he was hungry. And I did not have anything to eat, but we were collecting some groceries for the migrants in the office. So I took some of the corned beef and some sardines, and I put it in a bag and I gave him. The next time I was in the office and I was doing something, and he came and he told Sandy, Madam, the Mr. Bengoche, when I came last time, give me some groceries. So I come back for more groceries. So she said, well, I have no groceries here. At that time, all the groceries we had collected for the migrants was given away. She said, but I can make you a sandwich. And therefore, she said, wait here. And she went and she made a cup of tea and a sandwich for him. And she gave him the sandwich and the cup of tea. Yesterday, he came back again. And this time, I greeted him. And he said, Mr. Bengoche, I come for groceries again. And I said, well, I have no groceries. The madam gave you groceries last time you came. She said, no, she ain't give me no groceries. She only gave me food. Give me a sandwich. I said, well, I have no groceries. He said, what about a sandwich? I said, well, I don't have any sandwich either. And he was visibly upset. And I myself was very impatient. And looking back at it now, and looking at question number 3, probably I was not listening empathetically. I was now making a judgment that this man only now come in here to make his groceries and to collect food. And probably I was performing a cardinal error. Instead of listening attentively and empathetically, I was probably judging him. So I have to now say, I confess my sins, because I really was not giving him my full attention. What do you think about that? Anybody, what do you think about that story?
No, but if you understand attentively, what would have been the difference? What would have been the difference if you had done the right thing?
Well, if I had given him more of an attention, I probably would have empathized with him more. And I would have probably just come back and really go through the kitchen. I really did not have anything to eat, but probably I could have made him a cup of tea. But because I was now making a judgment, I really was not really listening. Yes.
But if you emphasize with them right, one thing you will be on a over and over basis, or recurring basis, a constant basis.
Well, all right. That's a good point. Meaning that if you now I setting up a recurring decimal that he will always be coming now for food. But probably I should have told him that instead of just dismissing him. Say, well, look, I don't have anything to eat. I don't have any groceries. But I have some tea. Could I make you a cup of tea for you to go? But I hope you are not using this now as a reason to come here every week. And probably he would have told me, say, well, sir, you know, things really bad out there. I'm trying to get a job, things hard, and I ain't getting anything to eat. And probably I may have had to look at that differently to say that probably, you know, I should be more caring. I should now start to make that as part of the budget. We have to have a sandwich for this man when he come. So I don't know. I don't know what is the answer. But the key is that probably I was not listening empathetically. So as you go through these learning questions, these listening questions, I want you to be very honest with yourself. Don't fool yourself. And at the end of it, look at the score. It's 15. So if you score 15 to 29, it says you need serious listening training. Wow. That tells me that some people in here have to really recalibrate their listening skills totally. If you have 30 to 39, that means you score over 2, almost in each one. Your score is promising, but you could greatly improve. Above average, if you make 40 to 49, but you could improve your skills. And 50 to 60, excellent. You have exceptional listening skills. So that means for you to score 15 to score 50 plus, you have to score many of them 5s. You have to score many of them 4s, not 5s. 4 by 15 is 60. So that means you would have had to say always in many of them. So I would like you to go through this quiz when you get a chance and really assess your personal listening skills. And then look at the literature and see what are the things that you have to do to improve your listening skills. And then I would like you to attempt the question on listening. Let's see what that question is. Assignments. Assignment 3, assignment 1. Look at it here. Look at what it says. After honestly, the word is honestly, after honestly completing the listening skills questionnaire, which I just showed you, in session 3 literature, and reflecting on your listening habits, please share your thoughts on the quality of your listening skills. Tell us how good a listener you are. And what do you have to do to improve your listening skills? Remember, we saw that there were 6 sets of skills and there were a number of tips for you to become a better listener. So you should go through the 6 set of skills and the tips that are in the session literature and then come to some plan, probably in your nice weekly planner under the 2B, you could write in, I have to make a greater effort to become a better listener by practicing skill number 1 or skill number 2 or skill number 3. So you must all try to tackle that assignment on listening. Good. We move forward again. Yes, go ahead. I see a hand waving of a lady I know always listens to me when I'm in the training, so I know she's a good listener already.
Quick question. With the same kind of scenario, where I live in Belmont, right? I have sometimes, just about 2 minutes, I have a lot of people suggested students cover the age and so on and all that, and they would ask for things and so on. But it have this guy, particular guy, in his phone, you might just be outside talking and so on sometimes. So I was talking to him from one day he came and he you see, bro, I think it's a man, you know, and he's talking and so on and all that. So I was trying to get the eyes, when he's not getting the eyes, she not as patient as me. My question is, you have to have patience so that listening, you have to have some balance, because why I'm saying that, he went and asked for the eyes, and she stood down there and he was kind of talking off her ears. And I really had to get the eyes on her. I gave him the eyes and I came back when I was back outside. When he got
I agree with you. I think sometimes and it's going to come to the next point we're going to talk about. Sometimes we have to be, the word is assertive, which I'm going to come to just now. That we have to be assertive and tell people that we can't sit down and waste whole morning. So yesterday, I'll give you a next story. Yesterday in the office, someone came, he called. He said that Mr. Bengoche, coach, and Miss Sandy are in the area. Now, he's a friend, huh? And are you all in the office? Yes. So can I come and just a few minutes? I said, sure, we're looking forward to it. I can drink a cup of tea. And he came in. Now, I was busy, and a client came in, and I was busy. And then Sandy was doing this team building video. And he planted himself there on the chair, and he started big conversation. And after a while, I find, but he taking up all our time, and we have work to do. And he is a driver, so he dropped his client to Mount Hope and come and sit down here. And he waiting on his client to finish her work in to finish what she's doing in Mount Hope. So I started to say, you know, that client could stay in Mount Hope for 2 hours. We can't afford to give him 2 hours of undivided attention. And we sitting down there, and afterwards he say, but coach, I find you're real quiet. But coach trying to get some work done. And then a client come in. Now, I was challenged between not making him feel bad, and on the other hand, using up my productive time. And therefore, that brings us to the next set of things, the next group of skills that we have to learn. So the first set of people skills are listening skills. The second set of skills are assertion skills. And let me just explain what assertion skills are. Assertion skills are maintaining respect, satisfying your needs, and defending your own rights without dominating, manipulating, abusing, or controlling others. If I was assertive, I should have said, his name is Daniel. I should have said, after 15 minutes or 10 minutes, how much time I could have allocated to Daniel. I should have said, Daniel, to be honest, well, not to be honest, say, Daniel, we have work to do. And I know you're waiting for your client, but I really cannot sit down with you while you wait for your client, because I have work to do. So let me tell you something. I could give you something to read, or I could give you a cup of tea, and you could sit down there. You could stay as long as you want and to read the literature, but Sandy and myself will have to continue with our work. Now, that is being assertive. that means that I am maintaining respect, I'm satisfying our needs to do work, and I'm not insulting him, I'm being accommodating to him, but I am being assertive with our time. Now, what is the alternatives to assertive? From here, we can see that in behavior, there are three elements within a continuum. On the extreme end, you can be submissive. On the other extreme, you can be aggressive. And in the middle is assertive. So in people skills, most persons, just like how we don't listen well, operate from either submissive or aggressive, and we are seldom assertive. Yesterday, with Mr. Daniel, we practiced submissive behavior because Daniel used up plenty of our precious time talking his talk, and while he is waiting for his client, he is not being put out because he cool, he getting paid. He waiting for his client to go and pick back up and then go down the road. But we are not waiting on his clients. And what we are doing is that he's using up our precious time. So by allowing him to do that, we were acting submissively. Now, we said we were being charitable. We said we were being pleasant, but actually we were being submissive. Or we could have been aggressive and say, Daniel, look, you come here to waste people's time. Look, you better go back, go in your car and go down the road and wait outside the hospital. Now that is being aggressive. So we should not have been submissive, but we should not have been aggressive. We could have been assertive. Daniel, we have sat down and spoken to you for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, how much we could have spared. And while the conversation is going nice, I have some things to do here. I have a client to deal with. Sandy has a video to complete, and she has some time, and we would like to leave here at 4 o'clock or 4:30 this evening. So please, Daniel, could you let us make you a cup of tea, get you on a magazine. You can sit down outside here, drink your cup of tea, read your magazine, but don't take up our time. What do you think about that? Let me hear your views. What do you think about that whole story with Mr. Daniel and his visit?
That probably might understand or if not, he might feel I don't know one get up and go on his own.
Yes, he might have. So it is possible that being assertive, you can hurt somebody's feelings. So you don't want to hurt feelings, because then if you hurt somebody's feelings, you're being aggressive. But if you don't say anything, you're being submissive. So you realize that to be assertive is really a fine thing to find that assertive behavior. I agree. Any other comments? So to come, what is that? Yes. Right, okay, yes, it hinges on the person's temperament too. And therefore, to be assertive, you have to be very adept. So let's say, come back to your example. The person comes to your front gate and is always wasting your time. After a while, you know that this person, given the chance, he will stand up there and talk for an hour. You know you cannot give that person more than 5 minutes. So when they come, You should tell them, good day, how are you going? Look, I have a pot on the fire and my husband belly grumbling. So I really cannot stand up here by the gate and listen to you for half an hour. So what do you have to say? Could you tell me? And then, sorry, but I will have to excuse myself. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? That is, I would say that is being assertive.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, agree. Very good. So what we say, what is assertion? Assertion skills is being able to verbally and non-verbally communicate your positive and negative feelings and thoughts without experiencing undue amount of anxiety or guilt and without violating the dignity of others. So it means that you don't want to hurt yourself. If you do hurt yourself, you are being submissive. And if you are hurting others, you are being aggressive. So that you want to find that sweet spot of being assertive. Now, in our training last week, Friday, we have 4 or 5 minutes, so I'll wrap up now. In our training last week, Friday, we saw that in many cases, we are not assertive with our managers, meaning that we don't want to be rude, but we don't want to be submissive. We don't want to be aggressive. And with our co-workers and other supervisors and with your staff, you don't want to be aggressive, but you don't want to be submissive. Rambo told me the other day that there was a big cuss-off between 2 truck drivers in the yard. They were both being aggressive. And he said no one said anything and everybody just leave them like that. Now, as a supervisor, probably you could have entered into the conversation and be assertive, but not aggressive. You could have said, well, you know, I hear what you're saying. Gentlemen, could you please keep down the conversation? Could you deal with it? And you try to be assertive to make sure that they do not disturb the peace of the compound, but you are being assertive. So when we come back next time, we will examine how we can use our communication skills to be more assertive and less aggressive and less submissive. So I would like to stop there. Let me just stop the recording.